Hello, everyone. Mallory here with Mallory's Weird World Adventures, the podcast, and I'm here to show you just how weird this world of ours really is. I have a special guest with me here today, Coleman Watts. Hi, Coleman.
Hey Mallory, how are you?
Doing well. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was nice meeting you in Vegas at SciCon 2024. And we met, we said hi. You gave me one of these, and which I think makes me now a card carrying weirdo.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. You're part of the club.
I'm part of the club.
I think it's funny because people are either really excited to be called weird or really offended by it, but I feel like everybody is a little bit weird. Like, there's always things about people that just make them unique and special. And so a lot of the Weird World brand is just celebrating that, what makes you different, because it's a good thing.
Everybody's different. There's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. And I guess we should start talking about the skeptical movement first, because like you said, we met at SciCon this past year, which was amazing. And it's a new world for me, as I'm sure you've kind of seen a little bit. My background was in anthropology. So a lot of what I have been taught to believe is, embracing other people's belief systems, having a respect for it, recording, not saying anything. And, sometimes that can be harmful. And I actually talked to Brian Dunning recently too. We were talking about how sometimes not having that skeptical mindset can be harmful. But I guess before we get into that, I want to ask how you got involved in the skeptical community and what your background in that looks like.
Yeah, I don't have much background in it at all. I mean, I got involved in the skeptical community because it was sort of an anchor for me when I was getting sucked into conspiracy theories and weird beliefs when I was in my like 20s and 30s, and the skeptical community got me out of that. And I was like, this is a good thing. This is very, very helpful in helping me sort out all of the to use your word, all of the weird things I believed in over the years because I heard it from a friend of a friend, or I saw a YouTube video on it, or before that, people would pass around DVDs and documentaries about different things, or books from books from the back corners of the bookstore that would talk about spirits and UFOs and ghosts and all of that stuff. And it's helped me to to take what's weird and separate it into what's true or what's verifiable versus what's just, a good story. Or, what's something that people want to believe or, feel like it makes them feel better to believe, but isn't backed up by science. And I've found that to be enormously helpful, and so I started my YouTube channel to try to convey that message and to try to also work through my own issues. I mean, that's sort of what I'm doing on this channel is taking a look at some of the weird beliefs that I've had in the past and reevaluating them from a skeptical scientific point of view and making fun of things that deserve to be made fun of and having fun with other things and just enjoying myself, having a good time with it.
I love that. I love that you can kind of laugh at yourself and also that you have the mindset to be able to reevaluate your reality and the things that, you believe and don't believe because it becomes hard for people sometimes to do that because they can sometimes form into part of your identity. And I feel like it takes a strong person to be able to look at your identity and beliefs and to be able to kind of shift them as the evidence comes in, which is what the skeptical mindset is about. But I applaud you for doing that.
Yes, there is a lot tied up into identity. And so, speaking of which,
Mhm.
um, I realize that you and I don't know if you can relate to any of this, but I grew up in Richmond, Virginia,
Oh,
and
no
I
way.
did and I did theater at places like VCU,
Mhm.
and did local community theater. I studied acting in college, and then I moved to California, and now here I am back on the East Coast. So I don't know if any of that is familiar to you at
You
all,
graduated
but
from theater VCU because so did I.
no, I didn't actually.
Okay.
No, I was in a play in theater and VCU when I was 10. That's what
Wow.
that's what made me want to act is
Which play
that
was it?
oh, it was an Arthur Miller play that the the grad students were putting on and they needed a 10-year-old for it.
That's amazing. Yeah, my full background, I went to a high school which was like kindly supported the arts and theater. So we did 5 shows a year. So I was like kind of just involved always there, always in the theater from then on, and went to theater VCU, which was very conservatory-like in its approach to stuff. We had to audition to get back in and then moved to
Hmm.
Los Angeles for a long time, like a decade. And then
Hmm.
more recently just kind of found my way back here once the world became digital and during and after COVID everything became digital and all auditions are digital and it kind of put me in a place where I could be anywhere that I wanted to be, so I chose to be
Well,
back
that's
here.
helpful.
Hmm.
Right. And anybody can start a YouTube channel or a podcast without needing to audition for anything.
It's true. It's when I went out to Los Angeles it was the era of make your own stuff, so I've always kind of made my own stuff, which was how Weird World happened too.
Right. You just wanted to do it and you did it.
Hmm. And so I want to back up a little bit and talk to you about some of the conspiracy theory stuff too. I want to know some of the stuff that you believed, and I guess maybe your opinion on conspiracy theories and how they can become so enticing to people.
Yeah, I totally want to talk about that. And I don't think that I'm that different from other people. I mean, I think everybody, people talk about being weird and think that they're in the minority. I don't think that they are. Shows like The X-Files, which I was super into when I was in high school, are extraordinarily popular. That was a primetime TV show. And also stuff that's even weirder than that, like Ancient Aliens on the History Channel, super popular. Um, uh, Ancient Apocalypse on Netflix, which recently had Keanu Reeves come and guest star in it. Also, super popular, big budget stuff. These are weird things that are very mainstream.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think that, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is how, since you're into acting, is how celebrities can and actors like Keanu Reeves can get sucked into this stuff. Um, and can get because I don't know if you've seen the Ancient Apocalypse show. Graham Hancock is a believer in um, what amounts to a conspiracy theory. He believes that there was an ancient culture, basically Atlantis,
Hmm.
that existed in ancient times and is the reason for all of the great things from the past, like the pyramids and
Hmm.
a lot of great structures. And it's there's no evidence for it, but it makes a good story, and people get sucked into stories like that.
Hmm.
So so when I was younger, I was into I don't know about into I believed that there were UFOs flying around abducting people. It's enough people had said that that's true. Who am I to say that it's not, right?
Hmm.
Um, I also got sucked into believing 9/11 conspiracies because that was becoming really a big thing at the time. And because I was sort of into health and wellness as well, I think there's a lot of overlap between those communities.
Hmm.
So because if you're into health and wellness, you can get sucked into things like um, Reiki, chiropractic, homeopathy, all of which don't have any scientific backing. And the fact that they don't have any scientific backing means that there must be a conspiracy. They
Hmm.
must be getting suppressed by mainstream pharma, big pharma doctors, big science must be conspiring against those things because how else would you explain it? How else
Hmm.
would you explain that that there's no studies that prove that this water that contains nothing actually heals people.
Mhm.
There's no studies to show that, just pressing on somebody's back without really knowing anything about it is going to help them. So, um, I
Yeah.
believed all that stuff. Um, and I don't know, it's kind of, I guess I'm not even embarrassed about it anymore because it's like, I think it's because everywhere I look now, maybe it's because I'm doing this YouTube channel and I'm just
Mhm.
looking in all of these places, but there's just so many people. There's
Mhm.
so many people who are into this stuff.
Yeah.
The video that I'm making right now is about one of the world's most prominent anti-vaxxers, Del Bigtree.
Mhm.
And I was I was swayed by that when I was younger.
Mhm.
People were making the argument that, these things contain weird chemicals, and I don't like weird chemicals, so, let's stay away from the weird chemicals. Um,
Mhm.
Never mind that they've saved millions of people's lives. And so, um, I'm doing a sort of a deep dive into his very, very strange conspiracy theories about Fauci and Bill Gates and what those guys are up to control the world and control the population and how the brave anti-vaxxers are the chosen ones and it gets nuts.
It's
But
crazy.
when you're in it, it doesn't seem nuts.
Mm-mm. I think I have a lot of opinions on it. I feel like the reason people can get so sucked into it is one, I think all of us kind of want to believe in magic a little bit. We want there to be an easy solution. We want there to be, you know, Santa Claus. Like it's like that little bit of magic you have when you're younger. It's like you want that to exist. So when you hear that it could, and credible people, people you think might be credible are saying it, you want to believe it. And I think part of it too is a lot of those worlds they cater the information that they want you to see, and they might even be telling you truths, but you're getting half of the truth. You're not getting any of the negatives. There's no here's the good and here's the bad. You get just the good, so it has to be good, right? I mean, one example of this, I'm going to get in trouble for talking about this probably, but you
Uh-oh.
remember as a conservationist, you remember the blackfish documentary they did on SeaWorld?
No.
It painted SeaWorld in a terrible light and, talked
Okay.
about the whale that killed someone. And it turned a lot of people against SeaWorld. But what it presented were practices that SeaWorld had done and given up on decades ago. And
Mm-hmm.
now it's like a different organization that gives to conservation, that gives to these animals. No animals are being bred in captivity anymore. But there was a
Right.
documentary that came out that showed, well, this is what they did. And it shows everything that bad they did in the past when the world was different, when people did capture animals and breed them and and didn't show what was going on now. And one of my friends, worked for that like organization, like she worked for Busch Gardens, which is like associated with SeaWorld, and she was also into conservation sciences. And she's like, they aren't showing people like what good SeaWorld is doing. And it became, people boycotted SeaWorld, and then all of a sudden they didn't have the money to give into the animals and conservation and the good work that they were doing anymore. So I feel like sometimes one side of something gets painted so aggressively, and they might even be true, but it doesn't hide, it hides out all of the bad, the people that are talking against it. So you get sometimes like a one-sided picture in those situations. I think that can be enticing.
And it's so easy to paint a one-sided picture, especially with documentaries. I mean,
Mhm.
any media really. Um, you know, there's so many examples I can't even pick one. It's it's like I don't know what some people's motivation is for documentaries. Like Del Bigtree made this documentary called Vaxxed, in which he took a
Mhm.
completely debunked idea, totally has been proven again and again to be false,
Mhm.
that children are being harmed by vaccines, and just blew it up into this documentary that using scary music and innuendo and some half-truths and some always old, outdated studies, things, and not presenting the new stuff. Like you said, if you take old things and you cherry pick those sources and you
Mhm.
leave out everything else, you can paint a very convincing picture.
Mhm.
And it's easy for people to get sucked into that because when it's presented in this slick format by someone who appears to be trustworthy, you know,
Mhm.
most of us don't have time to do a deep dive research project to find out if every single thing that we're looking at is
Mhm.
true or not.
It's true. And there's also, I mean, sometimes you have to be in a position where it affects you firsthand to be able to even see the other side. Like Michael with the anti-vaxxer and like the medical misinformation is very, it's a passion for him. And it's something like that, he strongly urges people to be skeptical about and to get all the facts because he was a physician, when he was going through residency and all his training and he was working with patients, he would see people make unbelievably harmful decisions or deny treatment that could save their lives. And then, instead, like they didn't make it because they wanted to, value their beliefs or, things that were not factual over the facts that, could help them. So sometimes you have to be on that, on the other side of things or in the field to kind of even be able to take the time to evaluate what is and isn't harmful.
Right. And there is real harm to misinformation.
Hmm.
I mean, sometimes it's all fun and games, and sometimes it's really not when you're dealing with like life-saving medical things that can help people, and you've got somebody believing the opposite and believing that it's poison and it's gonna kill you and that it's all part of a big conspiracy and cover up, et cetera, et cetera. And they've been fed all of this through misinformation channels. So
Hmm.
that's the more serious side of it. Can we talk about ghosts though?
Oh,
Because I wanted to talk
definitely.
to you. I wanted to talk to you about ghosts because we both did a video about the Winchester Mystery
Yes.
House, and you interviewed Jan and Bomey,
Yes.
who I feel like I know, even though I've never met her. Because if you're sitting at a video editor, you end up watching the same clips over and over and over again as you go through them.
Hmm.
And she was one of the interviewees in the video that I made about the Winchester Mystery House, which was basically a res reaction response parody of something that had been done by Destination Fear, which is a
Oh, yeah. Yes.
group of ghost hunters who are now Project Fear on YouTube. But they interviewed her and they spun the interview. I'm sure any historical facts they gave they cut out and they just focused on the spooky stuff. And
Hmm.
they just focused on things like, the I think that you did a good job of presenting it as a balanced interview where you would ask a question that had to do with the myth and the lore, and she
Hmm.
would respond and say, "Well, it's a good story, but there's no real evidence for it."
Hmm.
Uh, right. Um, there are some number 13s, but there's no no, but there's no record of her being a spiritualist. Maybe I should back up because not everybody in the audience is familiar with the Winchester Mystery House, but there's a, it's a large house and there's a lot of legends around it as you
Hmm.
discovered.
Yes, it's at one point it was 6 stories high, tall, and it started out as a 6-room farmhouse. And this woman who
Mhm.
was the heir to the Winchester rifle fortune bought it, moved out to San Jose from Connecticut, and continuously built on the house for decades until she died. It was the longest running construction in history. I believe it's in the Guinness Book of World Records for that still. And
Ooh.
it has I mean, hundreds of rooms. There's a stairway that goes to nowhere. There is a door that opens out into the garden from the second floor. So her designs are so peculiar that people immediately think that the spirits of the people who were killed by the Winchester rifles are telling her how to build, and that if she doesn't keep building to confuse them, that they're going to come get her. There's a bunch of like movies made about it. There's like, legends and stories, but she also very practically had a background in architecture. It was something that she had fun doing. And I think she was also just kind of a weird person that enjoyed, making a weird house.
Well, and the house, the doors and stairways to nowhere. I mean, the earthquake explains most of that.
Hmm.
There were the if the room that was on the other side of that door leading to nowhere collapsed during the earthquake,
Hmm.
and so people can point to it and say it's weird until you hear the explanation. And I think that's sort of what happens a lot is that when we see something at face value looks very strange and we don't have an explanation, our imagination fills in the rest.
Hmm.
And, we can imagine that there's something really spooky or something really mysterious going on when there's a pretty mundane explanation for why that happened.
Hmm.
And you can also find out that there were other, rich people at the time doing that same thing that she was doing. It was sort of a trend at the time. And so, she's not some like lone, person who was the only person that had the idea to build a large rambling house.
Right. And I think she also specifically was socially distant. So people didn't like that. Anthropologically in society, anytime someone doesn't fit in, and usually it's an older woman, they get deemed, a witch or,
Mhm.
this, and they get shunned or persecuted by society. And she was very much shunned and persecuted, back during that time because she was kind of a shut-in. And she was a philanthropist and gave a lot of money, but people didn't focus on that. They focused that she didn't come out. She wasn't social. She didn't invite people over. So she got very shunned and demonized even back in the day when she was alive.
It's true. And so for my video, I interviewed Adrian Hill, who did a lot of research on the Winchester Mystery House so that she could write the Wikipedia page for it. And so she wrote
Hmm.
a lot of the content on the Wikipedia page for Winchester Mystery. And one of the things that she found when she was uh, learning about it was that there are newspaper clippings from the time that accuse Sarah Winchester of being a spiritualist and being haunted and by thinking that she was going to die if she didn't finish her house. It's not a rumor that started after her death. It started actually before her death.
Hmm.
And you can see some of these framed newspaper clippings as proof that this really happened. And then it turns out when she researched it that the newspaper was owned by someone who really didn't like Sarah Winchester. They were like they were like frenemies or you like it got there was some bad blood between them.
Right.
And so this person who owned the newspaper was like, I'm just gonna talk shit about her. Like what's she gonna do about it?
Right. Right. That's really
And
funny.
right. And so just because it's printed in a newspaper doesn't mean it's the truth.
Right. There's tabloids all the time that are there for the drama.
Oh my God, if a historian from 100 years from now read the tabloids from today as their
Right.
historical documents,
It's horrible. I know. It's terrifying.
that's
Um, Yes. I try and I've been trying to more, especially with the Winchester House, to kind of, my thing is like the anthropology, the stories, the legends. It's to in a way tell and honor the legends and tales, which is what I tried to do in Weird World while also asking the practical questions, because there's so many things in the Winchester House that are, well, this was built for a practical reason.
Mhm.
The winding, twisting little stairs was because she had arthritis. And
Yes.
the third number 13 was because back in that time it was a lucky number. She had a seance room because everybody had a seance room in that time. It was the time of spiritualism. Like there wasn't anything weird that would say that she believed in ghosts that was ever written down.
And according to the records that Adrian dug up, that room that they're calling the seance room was actually the gardener's bedroom. And there's no record of her ever having seances in there.
They probably didn't. I know because we did like the full in-depth tour with the tour guide, and they say this is the seance room. And I do think they give the disclosure of we don't know if she ever really had a seance in here, but that and it's so close to the kitchen, like it's kind of there's not even a real wall between the kitchen. So you could tell it's probably like, you know, where a gardener or someone that worked in the house stayed because of its practicality to places where the help would be.
Right. Right. Um, but I think there's a tug that people feel between wanting to tell a good story
Hmm.
and maybe stretching the truth a little bit to make it a better story.
Hmm.
I think that that happens um, with people trying to promote their TV shows and their content and their you don't have to look far. I mean,
It's true. And
coming
it
back,
also is like a network and like a political thing too. I was talking with Brian Dunning about this last week when we were, going to create Weird World, we were sent through a variety of different networks for development. And, we were first on an indie streaming platform. And then we were in development with the Travel Channel before the Travel Channel was bought by Discovery. And then when the Discovery merger, or I'm sorry, when Warner Brothers, and then when Warner Brothers bought Discovery, then they dropped everything, and then we went to we took more of our own freedom to go here. And there is a lot of that push in that world from the production side to focus only on the ghost, only focus on this, we need the drama. And the Travel Channel even is full paranormal now, and that's all they want, and they push for the paranormal. We need more of this, we need more of this, we need more of this, and then even told me that it was to travel loggy for the Travel Channel.
there's
So
too
it's a
much
lot of
travel
it.
for the Travel Channel.
Right. So
And
there's a lot of the political nature behind a lot of that. And I guess, you have to start drawing your line in the sand of like, well, this is what I want to tell. And, what do I compromise on? And a lot of people won't they'll compromise to get their show out, which is, can be unfortunate depending on what they're compromising on.
and that ghost hunting channel that I was parodying in my episode about the Winchester Mystery House was on the Travel Channel.
Hmm.
It's good to know that it's not unique and that that's just what they do.
It very much is. They're full paranormal now, no skepticism. And it's funny, me and Michael and another one of my friends went to network with the History Channel about a show that was going to be, going through some natural phenomena, but still kind of trying to do the paranormal stuff. And even just the background in the development was, well, Mallory's going to be the believer and Michael's going to be the skeptic, and it's Mulder and Scully, but in real life. And like they try to push these narratives in something that's supposed to be, real. And like, it might be to an extent, but there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that influences that. And, one of the things that me and Brian Dunning had talked about was, he's seen that from that side too, and he's never compromised. Like, he is just very, firm in the belief that having a skeptical mindset is always what you need, and it's harmful to ever, humor into anything that isn't factual. Whereas, sometimes I lead more into the, well, I was an anthropologist. I do respect other people's belief systems. When does it become harmful? And when do I step in and say something? And it's an interesting balance.
These days, I feel like um, I look around at the world and the way that things are right now and think this is where misinformation has gotten us.
Mhm.
Like this political landscape, this division you know, over the science of medicine, the science
Mhm.
of anything really, has become so politicized and so polarized and so steeped in coming back to what you said at the very beginning of this identity.
Mhm.
People wrap up their identity in their beliefs. And at that point, challenging the belief is attacking the person's identity. It's an attack on their core,
Mhm.
um, and and causes an existential threat to them.
Mhm.
And and certainly if they were to even entertain that idea that maybe this belief that my whole tribe believes isn't true, that's also risking their membership in the tribe.
Mhm.
And
Definitely. And I'm
so
sure it feels like a betrayal of their tribe and their people too, in a it's hard to stray against what the people close to you believe, because like you said, you will have that fear that maybe you'll be dropped or shunned or not included. And that's why people who don't have that many people as a support system wind up falling into cults because they don't have a support system, and they want to have those close relationships, and they get these pseudo fake relationships put on them, and they're too lonely and afraid to kind of break away from that, so you kind of get stuck in the mindset doing things you probably would never have done otherwise.
Yep. And little by little, can get sucked down the rabbit hole and isolated from other people,
Hmm.
to the point where it becomes um, a self-fulfilling narrative where the idea that you and your cult, your group, your tribe is a persecuted minority,
Hmm.
becomes self-fulfilling because you're so cut off from other people, and
Yeah.
because you're and because what you're saying is so jarring to other people that you will be shunned by the mainstream or by some other tribe, and then
Hmm.
you really do believe that you're persecuted, and you really do believe that they're against you, and there's no point talking to them, and it just spirals down and down and down.
Hmm.
Another thing I've been thinking about is this idea of cognitive dissonance, where you can be presented with facts that contradict your worldview, but
Hmm.
not accept them because your worldview is more important to you than facts. And to change your own, basically make excuses for why those facts exist,
Hmm.
whether it's um, whether it's because God put those dinosaur bones in the earth as a test, to test your belief that the earth is only 6,000 years old. Um, it's There has to be a reason. And I was thinking about this just today
Hmm.
because there's this book called When Prophecies Fail by some anthropologist who went
Hmm.
and infiltrated a cult that believed that the world was going to come to an end on a specific date. I believe it was in the 70s. And so on this specific date, there was going to be a giant flood and humanity was going to be wiped out. And the cult existed to hold vigil for this date.
Hmm.
And when the day came and went, there was, of course, an enormous amount of disbelief and, um, you know, confusion among the followers. What
Hmm.
could this possibly mean that the our leader has declared this date and she was wrong? What could that mean? And then the leader comes out the next day and says, well, actually, your faith prevented the flood. And their belief became stronger. And I was thinking about this because in the video I'm making right now, Del Bigtree has predicted that vaccines would kill everybody. Literally, that's his belief. And he made this prediction about 3 years ago now.
Hmm.
Um, and he didn't give a date for when we would all be gone, but
Right.
it was going to be like really soon, because how long could it take for a poison to kill you?
Right.
Um, shouldn't take long, really. And yet here we all are.
Hmm.
So, what do his followers think about him, given that he's made this prediction that hasn't come true? A lot of them believe in him even more strongly today than they
Hmm.
did back when he made that prediction.
Crazy. I mean, I think part of it is that sense of community that is created by those people. And I also think it's that validation to want to be accepted. I mean, if you have someone that you idolize, or even more personally, if like, they're your cult leader, it's something that you want to support them because you want them to be right. Otherwise it would question your entire identity, because like you said, belief systems become your identity, right? You have formed this community, you have formed this support for someone, and to break it would isolate you, and it would also make you question your full identity. So you continue to rather than work on yourself and have that practical skeptical mindset like we said, and pivot, because the world is always constantly changing and evolving. People get stuck in, well, I couldn't be wrong, therefore this is why I'm right, and they start making excuses for, and this person I idolize, they can't be wrong. Everything today is set up for our modern convenience. We have our phones with us all the time that can access anything and everything. We are not put in situations where we have to be out of our comfort zone. And even things that used to, require a level of adventure, like, going on a vacation, going on a journey, are so set up to be simple and easy. You can get one hotel resort that has everything you need covered. Like we are sold on convenience and what makes things simple for us. So we don't like leaving our comfort zone. We don't have to do it very often. So it makes us very, very like stiff and rigid. And we don't like trying new things or having to step out anywhere we don't have to. So I think that definitely contributes to people that fall into the cult mindset, and why people don't want to question other people's, they don't want to question their own beliefs or the beliefs of their community, because it would require them to get uncomfortable and step out of that comfort zone. And it's something that we're just not really forced to do anymore. So people don't want to do it.
Well said. Well said. And we have these devices in our pockets that we could use to fact check anything, anytime, and
Mhm.
find out that, there's misinformation that we're believing in, and we don't do it.
Hmm. Right. It's wild. I think we're and I mean, just people that I know, like personally in my family, people grow up and, well, my parents believe this, therefore I have to believe this. And there's no want or will or even care to question anything, because it's easy and it's, in my comfort zone. And, it undoes everything I've ever believed my whole life to step out of it. So I'm just gonna stay here. And then, that's why I think people fight so hard to disprove facts that are, valid facts, because they don't want to address that they could be wrong, and therefore they might need to reevaluate their worldview.
And I think, you know, science and the scientific method have only been around
Hmm.
for a few hundred years at most. And we humans didn't evolve with that. That's not, we're not naturally wired to think in terms of the scientific method. Our our strategies for evaluating what's true is what seems true, what feels right, and especially what people around us are saying. And so if we get into a bubble and we've got this all these wonderful technologies now that are designed to create bubbles,
Hmm.
um, where we can be surrounded by people who agree with us or all are perpetuating a certain idea, then we're just going to believe it. We're just going to go with it because I think skepticism has to be learned. The scientific method has to be learned and taught. It took millions of years for humans to learn it, and and it still doesn't come naturally.
Hmm.
Scientists, people, trained scientists with doctorates still fall into false beliefs,
Hmm.
still get sucked into false ideas, and stray from the scientific method. I'm not saying that science causes people to do this, but I think just our human nature
Hmm.
causes people to do this. And I think there's another phenomenon, which is just that it feels really good to have people agree with you and validate you.
Hmm.
And if that's happening by you saying something that's not true, you're just going to keep doing it.
Hmm.
And not even, and maybe just fool yourself even, or maybe not even really, just don't question it because it's working for you.
Right.
It's a strategy that works. People who are daytime TV show hosts and have psychics or people who sell magic pills or people who sell the power of positive thinking or whatever it is that they're peddling and have them on their shows. It feels good, it gets clicks, it gets likes, and the audience loves it, everybody's having a good time. So, you know why investigate further if it's working for you and if it's working for everybody?
Right. That's true. It's a very group-centered mindset. You like it, it hurts us to stray. They just made a movie about it. I mean, the musical Wicked. Like we don't want to go against society because then we're the bad guy. We're demonized for being different a lot of times or having a different point of view. And it's very, and I think I like what you said there too, because I believe we're hardwired as children to want to believe in magic. Kids have such imaginative play and, they believe that there's magic in the world because they don't understand how it works. And becoming an adult and getting older and, moving into the realms of science, it's kind of like losing a little bit of that magic sometimes in at least how we traditionally would feel it. And so it is learned to like have to see things differently. And sometimes it can feel, if you don't look at it like, you're discovering new things and truths. And, if you're not excited about looking at that way, if you have the wrong mindset, changing your mind to look at things in a skeptical mindset can get a bad rep and it can make you feel like you're losing that magic, because you're getting rid of the possibilities of what could be. And I think, there's definitely a different way to look at that. But I think the people that don't like it or, criticize it, that's what they're criticizing a lot of times because it gets a bad reputation as being, negative or, like, why do you want to ruin everything? There's a lot of that because they don't see the joy in making, authentic discoveries that do wind up, not being able to be disproved, so therefore it's a valid theory.
Right. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Science has ruined everything except for making us healthier and live longer and giving us all of these wonderful technologies and giving us the power to travel to other planets and you know giving us the supercomputers in our pockets. Aside from that, science has ruined everything.
It's true. There's just so much of that mindset. I mean, I don't get it because I find the joy in discovery and, learning new things, even if they're not exactly what you expected them to be. But a lot of people don't want to be pushed out of that comfort zone and they want it to be what they want, and they're going to demonize and be offended by losing the magic of what they believe. And it's a hard line to walk.
Yeah, and it sells.
It does.
Sells.
It does. Well, I guess we're almost out of time here, but before we go, Coleman, I want to ask where people can find you. And you've kind of talked a little bit about some of your new projects, but I guess is there anything else you'd like to say or promote on here today?
Oh, I could talk forever, but it's good to connect, good to talk to you. Yeah, my YouTube channel is called Think This Through. I debunk, make fun of, have fun with cults and conspiracies and con artists and weird things that may or may not be true and try and figure out the difference.
Amazing. I loved your last video. I'm excited to see the next one.
Thank you very much.
Of course, and thank you for
This,
joining me today.
this next one, for some reason, is going to end in a dance number. I'm not sure why my creative process does this sometimes, but you'll see.
I like it. I've done that before. It's because you're a theater kid. It's the creative side.
It just comes out. Great talking to you.
You too. And until next time, everybody, stay weird.